Read the Bible with me. There's a lot of beginnings and endings, but we see God all in it. And although in this chapter we're going to read about death and new life, we're going to see it in the light of God. And therefore, it all makes sense to us that death is not a punishment from God. And when you're walking with Him, even death can be a part of His plan, a part of His will, a part of His design, which is never a bad thing for the believer. So in our last message, we read about how the brothers of Dinah murdered the whole town. Now in this chapter, God appears and tells Jacob to go back to where he first saw him. This is a sign that sometimes it is God's will for us to go back. And so when he did, God sent a paralyzing fear all around the neighboring towns so that they didn't attack them. Now, only God can do that. But before they left, Jacob told everybody in his whole household to bury the idols. So they did. They buried all of their false idols in Canaan. But remember these false idols, even though they got rid of everything, including their Lucky Charm earrings. As they went to Bethel to build an altar, on their way back to Isaac.
Finally, Jacob made it back home to his father Isaac at Mamre in Kiriath Arba, present-day Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived.
Where they were originally going, not only were idols buried, but Rachel was buried too. Jacob's beloved Rachel died in childbirth. And she tried to curse her son by naming him Ben-Oni, son of my pain. But Jacob corrected that by naming him Benjamin, son of good fortune.
I think it's fortunate that we always have a heaven's perspective when it comes to death.
And also, her leaving earth in this way
is not because of God.
She died because of her sin and because of her husband's curse of her sin. Remember when she stole her daddy's false idol? And her own husband, Jacob, cursed anybody who had taken anything from his stepfather, Laban. She died because of her sin and her husband's curse on her sin, not because of God. Y'all know on a cha-cha slide when he say, "Nah, it's about to get funky." Well, it is, because on their way back to Canaan where Isaac lives, Reuben, the oldest boy out of all 12 of them brothers, 12 tribes of Israel, he had the nerve, the audacity to sleep with his stepmama, Bilhah. See there? Now this one is a sin that he brought on himself. Now later on, as this story unfolds, we're gonna see the consequence of that. And the consequence is he's gonna lose his birthright. Sounds familiar? I got a little side note for all of the kind of Christians that treat our Heavenly Father like a stepfather. As a child of God, if you slip up and you sin, God is going to bring that blessing down to the next in line. And even though Simeon was the next in line, and Levi and Judah and a bunch of people before Joseph, they murdered people, they sinned left and right, and God sees everything. So the only one who was righteous in all of this was Joseph. So Reuben's birthright got trickled down to someone who deserved it. And as children of God, we better stop tripping, because God sees all sin, and you better believe he's going to find someone to give that blessing to. Just ain't going to be you. Who out there is giving up their birthright and treating our Heavenly Father like a stepfather? Back to the story. Now, we done saw when Esau did the same thing and traded his birthrights for a cup of gumbo. And he lost out on a legacy of the Bible being about him. Instead of the Bible that we read about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it was supposed to be Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. And so they finally get back to the land of Canaan, and they get to bury their father at the ripe old age of 180. Next to his twin brother Esau. And I'm gonna pull out another good thing. This was also how Isaac and Ishmael buried their daddy Abraham. I know it's hard to believe, but it's a blessing for them to be able to do that, and us too. And so in the midst of death and pain and sin and shame, we still see the beauty of God in all of this. We see reconciliation, we see love, we even see blessings of good fortune with this newborn son. And so as we face traumatic events in our lives, we misjudge situations and fall into sin, like sleeping with our own stepmother. That's just nasty. Or whatever the case may be.
Every story that includes God turns out beautiful.